I should have turned back the moment I saw the deer. It was October 2004, and I was driving through Maryland's back roads toward Millbrook, a town so small it barely registered on my GPS. The deer was hanging from a tree branch about 30 feet off Route 40, gutted and splayed open like some kind of twisted art installation. Its organs were gone, just hollow, and carved into the bark beneath it were words that I couldn't quite make out from the road. I was 23, fresh out of journalism school and desperate to make my mark, and the Maryland Wolfman case had been my obsession for 6 months, ever since I stumbled across a true crime forum discussing the killings. 7 victims in 3 years, all found mutilated in ways that suggest animal attacks. Except, animals don't arrange bodies in patterns. Animals don't leave symbols carved into flesh. The police called it an unsolved string of murders. Online, people called it the Wolfman. I called it my ticket out of writing obituaries for the Baltimore Sun. My editor hadn't exactly approved this trip. Take a long weekend, I told him. Family stuff. Instead, I packed my recorder, my camera, and every file I'd compiled on the case. If I could get a real story, interviews with locals, maybe even find evidence the police missed, I could finally prove I was more than just an intern who fetched coffee and wrote bullshit stories. Millbrook appeared around a bend like something out of time. A main street with maybe a dozen buildings, half of them shuttered. A general store, a diner called Maggie's, a post office that looked like it hadn't been renovated since the 70s. The gas station at the edge of town had a single pump and a handwritten sign that read, "Cash only." I pulled into the gravel lot in the Millbrook Motor Inn just as the sun began to dip behind the tree line. The inn was a squat, L-shaped building with peeling yellow paint and a flickering vacancy sign. A woman in her 60s sat behind the front desk, watching a small television with the sound barely audible. "Help you?" she asked without even looking up. "I need a room, just a few nights." She glanced at me then, something unreadable crossing her face. "You here for the festival?" Festival?" "The Harvest Festival. This weekend." She slid a registration card across the counter. "We don't get many visitors otherwise." I filled out the card using my real name. Stupid in retrospect. "Actually, I'm a journalist. I'm researching the murders that happened around here." Her hand froze halfway to taking my credit card. "Those are closed cases." "I know, but I'm writing a piece about unsolved." "They're closed." She ran my card with sharp, efficient movements. "Room 12, around the side. Checkout's at 11. The conversation was over. I dragged my bag to room 12, which smelled like mothballs and old carpet. The bed sagged in the middle, and the heater rattled like it was full of bolts. But it had a table, and that's where I spread out my files. 7 victims. The first in October 2001. Jennifer Costas, 29, found in the woods north of town. The autopsy report I'd managed to obtain through a Freedom of Information request listed massive trauma consistent with animal predation, but the crime scene photos told a different story. Her body had been positioned deliberately, arms spread wide, legs together, and her throat? God, her throat had been opened so deeply she was nearly decapitated. The second victim was exactly 1 month later, during the November full moon. Then nothing, until October the following year. Then November again. The pattern was clear, even if the police reports never mentioned it. Full moons in October and November, autumn moons, hunter's moons. The most recent victim had been found last November, 2003, which meant, if the pattern held, the killer would strike again this month. In 5 days, the full moon would rise over Millbrook. I spent the next morning in the town library, a converted house on Maple Street run by a librarian who looked like about 100 years old. She eyed me suspiciously when I asked about local history, but she pointed me towards the archives. What I found made my hands shake. There were newspaper clippings dating back to the 1800s, stories about livestock mutilations, missing people, strange howls in the woods. Every autumn, like clockwork. But what really caught my attention was an article from 1952 about a cult that had operated in the area. The article was vague, mentioning only that several individuals were arrested for disturbing activities, and their meeting place, an old mill on the outskirts of town, had been burned down. The article included a grainy photo, men in dark robes standing in a circle, and in the center, barely visible, was someone wearing what looked like a wolf's head. "You find what you need?" I nearly jumped out of my skin. The librarian stood behind me, her expression hard. "I'm just researching local history," I said. "That history's best left alone." She began collecting newspapers I'd pulled. "We're closing early today. Festival preparations." "Could you tell me anything about this?" I pointed to the cold article. Her jaw tightened. "No. And if you're smart, you won't go around asking about it either." That afternoon, I drove out to where the first victim had been found. The police report listed the location as Harmon Woods off Old Creek Road. It took me an hour of wrong turns on unmarked dirt roads before I found it. The woods were deep here, the canopy so thick that even midday seemed dim. I parked and walked in, following the coordinates I'd marked on my map. The October air had that sharp, cold quality that stings your lungs. The leaves crunched under my feet. I found the spot maybe half a mile in. Someone had tied yellow police tape around several trees, but it was old now, faded and torn. The ground still looked disturbed, even 3 years later. Darker soil where blood had soaked in. That's when I saw the symbol. It was carved into a massive oak tree about 10 feet from where the body had been found. A circle with lines radiating out from it like sun rays, and inside the circle, something that looked like a spiral, or maybe a claw. I was photographing it when I heard the sound. A low, guttural breathing, coming from somewhere deeper in the woods. Every rational part of my brain said it was just a deer, maybe a fucking dog, but my hindbrain, the part that still remembered being prey, screamed at me to run. I did. I crashed through the underbrush back to my car, not caring about the branches that whipped my face or the thorns that tore my jacket. I didn't look back until I was inside the doors, locked, engine running. Nothing emerged from the woods, but I could swear I saw a shape between the trees. Tall, hunched, watching. I drove back to Millbrook with my heart hammering so hard I thought I might pass out. Maggie's Diner was the only place open for dinner. It was one of those classic small-town spots, with a long counter, vinyl booths, and a laminated menu that probably hadn't changed since 1985. A handful of locals sat scattered around, and all conversation stopped when I walked in. I took a booth in the back and ordered a coffee and a burger from a waitress who looked about my age. Her name tag read Sarah. "You're the journalist," she said. Not a question. Word traveled fast. That's right." "You should leave." She said it quietly, glancing toward the counter where an older man in a flannel jacket was watching us. "The festival's this weekend. After that, you should go." "Why does everyone keep warning me off?" She refilled my coffee without being asked. "Because people who ask too many questions about the Wolfman don't stick around." My stomach went cold. What do you mean? What do you mean?" But she was already walking away. I ate quickly and returned to my room. Outside, I could hear people in the parking lot. More voices than I'd heard since arriving. When I peeked through the curtains, I saw them. Maybe 20 people, all wearing dark clothing, walking toward the woods behind the motel. I grabbed my camera and followed. I know, every horror movie, every true crime show, the protagonist does something stupid and you yell at the fucking screen. But I was 23, and I was convinced I was invincible. More than that, I was convinced I was onto something huge. I followed at a distance, using the moonlight to navigate. The group moved with purpose, following a trail that went deeper into the forest. After about 20 minutes, I saw light ahead. A bonfire. It was massive and roaring, in a clearing that I hadn't known existed. I crept closer, hiding behind a fallen log at the clearing's edge. There were more people than I thought, maybe 50, all in dark robes now, standing in a circle around the fire. And at the north point of the circle stood a wooden altar covered in symbols, like the one I had seen on the tree. A figure stepped forward, and even from my hiding spot, I could see what made my blood turn to ice. The wolf mask, matted fur, yellow glass eyes, jaws frozen in a snarl. But it's what was in the figure's hands that made me understand. They weren't normal hands anymore. They'd been fitted with some kind of metal apparatus, curved blades that jutted out like claws on one hand, and on the other, metal mandibles that opened and closed like jaws full of fangs. The Wolfman wasn't a lone killer. It was a position, a role passed down or assigned. "Brothers and sisters," the Wolfman's voice rang out, distorted by the mask. "The hunter's moon rises. The harvest comes." The crowd responded in unison. "Blood for the autumn, flesh for the soil." I had my camera up, recording, my hands shaking so badly I wasn't sure if the footage would be usable. This was it. This was the story that would make my career. A cult operating in rural Maryland, performing ritual murders. A hand clamped over my mouth. I thrashed, but whoever grabbed me was strong. They dragged me backward, away from the clearing, and I lost my grip on the camera. It fell silently into the leaves. "Don't make a sound," a voice hissed in my ear. Sarah, the waitress. She pulled me 100 yards back before finally releasing me. "What the hell are you doing?" she whispered urgently. "Do you have a death wish?" I'm documenting." "You're about to become their next victim." She grabbed my jacket. "We need to go. Now." "My camera!" "They already found it. Come on!" We ran. Not the careful, slow retreat I should have taken, but an all-out sprint through the dark woods. Behind us, I heard shouts, howls, human voices mimicking wolves. They were hunting us. Sarah knew the woods better than me, pulling me down paths that I couldn't see. My lungs burned. My legs screamed. But the sounds behind us were getting closer. We burst out onto a road. Not the one I'd parked on. Somewhere else. Sarah's car was there. A beat-up Honda Civic. We threw ourselves inside and she gunned the engine, tires spitting gravel as we fishtailed onto the pavement. In the rearview mirror, I saw them emerge from the woods, a dozen figures in robes. And at the front, the Wolfman, those terrible mandibles glinting in the moonlight. Sarah drove like hell until we reached the edge of town. She pulled me into an abandoned gas station and killed the engine. "You need to leave," she said, her voice shaking. "Tonight. Right now." "Who are they? What is this?" "They call themselves the Autumn Court. They've been here forever. Generations. They believe that sacrificing people during the harvest moons keeps the town prosperous, keeps the land fertile." She laughed bitterly. "And you know what? Millbrook has never had a bad harvest. Never has harsh winters. People live long lives here, so nobody questions it." "That's insane!" "Is it? 7 people in 3 years versus the whole town's well-being? They do the math differently than you. We have to go to the police." She looked at me like I was a child. "The sheriff's in the Autumn Court. Half the town is or knows about it and looks the other way. There's no help coming." I sat there processing. My camera was gone. My evidence was gone. And I was probably a dead man. "There's something else," Sarah said quietly. "Every few years, they choose someone new to be the Wolfman. Someone from outside. They make them part of it. Transform them." She met my eyes. "They were going to choose someone this harvest season." My mouth went dry. "Me? You asked all the right questions. Showed up at the right time. You're perfect." We sat in silence for a moment, and Sarah reached into her glove compartment and pulled out a revolver. "Take this. Go to your car, get your shit, and drive until you hit the interstate. Don't stop in Millbrook. Don't come back." I took the gun. It felt heavy and foreign in my hand. "What about you?" "I'm leaving too. After tonight, I'm done." She started the car again. "I'll drop you at the motel. You've got maybe an hour before they organize a real search." The motor inn was dark when we arrived. Sarah kept the engine running while I jumped out. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "I'm sorry you came here." I ran to room 12 with my hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key into the lock. Inside, I threw everything into my bag. Files, recorder, clothes, didn't matter. I just needed to get out of there. The desk clerk was gone when I passed through the lobby. The TV was still on, playing a rerun of Jeopardy to an empty room. My car was where I'd left it, and I'd never been so relieved to see that beat-up Civic of my own in my life. I threw my bag in the passenger seat and started the engine. And they stepped out from the shadows. 10 of them, robed figures forming a semicircle around my car. The Wolfman stood in the center, tilting that terrible masked head. I threw the car in reverse, but more figures appeared behind me. I was boxed in. The Wolfman approached my driver's side window, tapped on it with those metal claws. They sounded like knives on glass. I thought about Sarah's gun, still in my jacket pocket. Could I shoot my way out? How many bullets did I even have? The Wolfman made a gesture, and 2 cult members yanked my door open. Hands grabbed me, pulled me out. I fought, managed to land a punch that connected with someone's jaw, but there was too many of them. They dragged me toward the woods. I screamed, kicked, bit someone's hand and tasted blood, but they were relentless, hauling me down a path I hadn't seen before, deeper into the forest than I'd gone. We reached a structure, the old mill, I realized. The one from the newspaper article. It hadn't been burned down. That was a lie. A cover story. Inside, the mill had been converted into something between a church and a slaughterhouse. Candles everywhere. More symbols carved into the walls and the floor. And against the far wall, a collection of tools I didn't want to examine too closely. They strapped me to a table in the center of the room. The Wolfman stood over me, and I could see the person's eyes through the mask now. Brown eyes, disturbingly human. "You came looking for the truth," the Wolfman said. The voice was muffled, but male. "You wanted to understand. Now, you will." "Please, I won't tell anyone. I'll leave. I'll forget everything." "You will leave," the Wolfman agreed. After you understand your purpose." 2 cultists brought forward the metal apparatus, the claws and the mandibles, each on a separate leather harness. They looked old, medieval almost, covered in scratches and dark stains I knew was dried blood. "Every Wolfman serves for 3 years," the voice continued. 3 years, 7 harvests. Then they pass on the mantle. Tomorrow night is the hunter's moon. Your first harvest. No, I'm not a killer. I won't." "You will." The Wolfman leaned closer. "Because if you don't, we'll kill someone you love. Your mother in Baltimore, your little sister in college, your editor at The Sun. We know everything about you. We've been watching since you first posted about us online. My blood turned to ice. But if you serve your 3 years faithfully, they live. You live. And then you're free, with enough money to start over anywhere you want. The Autumn Court takes care of its own." The cultists began strapping the apparatus to my hands. The claws went on my right hand, cold metal closing around my fingers. The mandibles on my left, the curved blades making my hand into something alien. "No," I whispered. "Please, no." But they continued. When they were done, I couldn't even recognize my own hands. The claws extended my reach by 6 inches, razor sharp and designed to tear. The mandibles opened and closed when I flexed my fingers, creating a terrible chomping motion. The Wolfman removed his mask. He was younger than I expected, in his 30s, with a face that I would have passed on the street without a second glance. Ordinary, human. "I've served my time," he said. 3 years, 7 souls offered. The harvest has been generous. He sat the mask on my chest. The fur was coarse, the leather interior stained with sweat, and God knows what else. Now, it's your turn. "I won't do it." "You will. Because tomorrow night, we'll bring you your first harvest, and you'll discover something about yourself." They lifted me off the table, but kept my hands bound, led me to a room at the back of the mill, a cell, really, with a cot and a bucket and nothing else. They locked the door, and I heard them outside, chanting. I looked down at my transformed hands in the dim light, bleeding through the cracks in the wall. I looked down at my transformed hands and the dim light bleeding through the cracks in the wall. I tried to remove the claws, but they'd been fastened with some kind of lock that I couldn't manipulate. The mandibles were the same. I was trapped in them. The night was endless. I didn't sleep. I alternated between panic and numbness, my mind trying to find a way out of this nightmare. But every scenario ended the same way. If I refused to kill, people I loved would die. If I tried to escape, they'd hunt me down. If I went to the police were in on it. I was trapped. Morning came, gray light filtering into my cell. Eventually, the door opened. Sarah walked in, carrying a tray of food. I stared at her. "You're one of them. I tried to warn you," she said, setting down the tray. "I told you to leave. You led me to them. I gave you a chance." Her voice was tired. "Some people listen. You didn't." She left before I could respond. 2 days passed in a haze. I tested the door, tested the walls. Everything was solid. The only window was 8 feet up and barred. As the sun set, I heard them gathering outside. More voices than before. Drums started, a rhythmic beat that made my chest tight. The door opened. 4 cultists entered, along with the former Wolfman. "It's time," he said. They led me out into the main chamber. The entire Autumn Court was there now. I counted at least 70 people, men and women of all ages. I recognized the motel clerk, the librarian, the man from the diner. Normal people. And on the floor, bound and gagged, was a woman I didn't recognize. She looked about 30, her eyes wide with terror. "Your first harvest," the former Wolfman said. He held out the mask to me. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. "Put it on." "No," he sighed. Then he pulled out a phone, dialed, and held it to my ear. My mother's voice came through, confused. "Hello? Who is this?" "We're at her house now," the former Wolfman said quietly, taking the phone back. "Your choice." The woman on the floor was crying, making muffled sounds through her gag. My hands were shaking. The claws rattled against each other. I looked at the mask, at the woman, at the cultists surrounding us. And I understood, finally, what true helplessness felt like. "I'm sorry," I whispered to the woman. I took the mask. It smelled like death inside, like sweat and blood and madness. I pulled it over my head, and the world became smaller, my vision limited to what I could see through the eye holes. The cultists began chanting. The drums grew louder. The former Wolfman cut the woman's bonds and shoved her toward me. She scrambled away, but there was nowhere to go. The cultists formed a circle around us. "Make it quick," he told me. "That's the only mercy you can offer." The woman begged. She screamed. She told me about her daughter. And I can't tell you what happened next. Not because I don't remember. I remember every detail, every sound, every splash of blood. But I can't say it. I can't make my mouth form the words of what I did. When it was over, I was covered in red. The claws and mandibles dripped. The woman was silent. Then, the cultists cheered. That was my first. I'm writing this on my laptop in a motel room. Not in Millbrook, but in a town 2 counties over. Tomorrow night is another full moon. November this time. The bleeding moon, they call it. I've done this 6 times now. 6 harvests. 6 people whose names I won't write, whose faces I see when I close my eyes. I tell myself I'm doing it to protect my family. That's true. They're alive, safe, and unaware of what their son and brother has become. But I'm also doing it because some part of me, God help me, has started to understand the rush, the power, The way the mask transforms you into something beyond human consequence. I have one more. Then I can pass on the mask, take the money, and disappear. Maybe I'll move somewhere far away, change my name, try to forget. But I know I never will. The Wolfman stays with you, even after you take off the mask. If you're reading this, if you're thinking about chasing stories in small Maryland towns, looking into unsolved murders, don't. Some mysteries are meant to stay buried. Some truths will destroy you. The Autumn Court is still there, still operating, still choosing their Wolfman from curious outsiders who ask too many questions. And when my term is up, they'll find someone new. Maybe it'll be you. The moon's rising. I can see it through my window, fat and orange on the horizon. I need to go put on my mask now. The harvest calls.